Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this resin geode piece. I skipped over showing you how to mix the items here, but you can check out my other video for more in-depth step-by-step instructions on how to mix the resin. I'm trying out a new technique in this video where I wanted to do, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but like a bullseye pour. I thought it would give a cool ringed effect, and seeing some other geodes, I thought maybe try something new out and see what would happen. It didn't quite work out as planned, but I think it ended up with a pretty cool effect regardless, so it was worth the experiment. As you can see, I started with one circle, the black resin poured in the center, and then I poured the other colors in the center of what I had already poured so that it makes this bullseye shape. And I'm just going to keep doing that until it spreads out and covers more of the wood panel that I'm using. There's no pattern to how I'm pouring the colors, just alternating with whichever I thought looked cool next to each other. I'm shifting it a little here because it's getting off center. But I'm just pouring, each color to make enough rings till I can kind of shift it around and cover more of that wooden board. As I poured more resin, it kind of shifted towards the edge of the wooden panel, and eventually it pours over a little bit. Since this was an experiment, I just kind of went with that and just kept pouring to see what would happen. Here I'm just doing a lot of the same, just pouring more and more colors in here. Like I said, experimenting, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. Now I'm just trying to shift it around a little bit since it's pouring over that edge. And then just pouring more colors. I decided to just embrace how it's on that edge of the wood panel and how those colors are coming off the edge because it's giving it a really cool pattern look. And just, adding more and more until I finally have enough to kind of tilt it and spread that around. So now I am kind of destroying that whole pattern I just spent all that time setting up, but I am taking the panel and tilting it so the resin that's on it covers the whole thing. And sorry for being off camera right now, but you can see the resin dripping off as I'm tilting it just to get the whole panel covered. So here you can see those circular forms really spread out when I did that, and I am pouring some more on top here because I really liked that look, but to get the whole panel covered I had to spread it around. So I'm just layering my colors again and doing more of that bullseye technique. And if you don't like watching this part, feel free to skip ahead. I know I'm doing a lot of the same stuff over and over. I will say I did use silicone in my resin mixture for this one. I used it in all the other resin geode pieces that I've created and loved the effect. I didn't love it in this, and you'll see why in just a little bit, but you see how those rings are clearly defined, and you can really see the distinction between each color right now. As this dries and as the heat is applied, those will really start to blend together, and that's a look I love in the other style that I've done, but I don't love that that's the effect I got here. So, you'll see that once we get to the next stage. Right now I'm still just adding more colors and letting the resin fully coat the canvas. And you can start to see where that purple and gold comes together, that they're starting to blend. That is because I've added the silicone to my mixture. And here I'm just, finishing up that bullseye. It's starting to drip over, so I know I've got enough resin covering the whole piece. Now I am just going in, and I had some colored resin left over, so I'm adding just little bits where I thought it could use more color. You'll see me actually adding a little bit more silicone to my cups here. Usually I love having it. It makes some really cool textures, but for what I was trying, I guess I shouldn't have used it. I definitely want to try again to do the same technique without it and see how it ends up. I still love the way this piece turned out, but I don't know if I would do it again exactly like this. Here I dropped my gloves because I'm clumsy, but I actually really like the way it made like a scalloped texture on the outside of the rings, so wasn't too upset about that. And here I'm just blending things together a little bit before I add the heat to it. I'm just pouring in the last bits of resin that I have in my cups so it doesn't go to waste. And just defining those lines, which I thought was an important step, but ended up changing a lot. But here we have the heat gun, and you can see those cells developing as I even apply just a tiny bit of heat. So now I am adding my stones, and I'm starting with the center. These are like crushed black shells. They're really pretty. You'll be able to see when I post the still of the final piece, but you can really see those cells developing here and how they're blending. Here I'm just adding in some clear crystals to where I have the gold. I really like the way you can see through to that gold pigment, and it just makes them look really pretty. I'm just outlining that ring. It's like a half circle and going all the way around with different shapes in my clear crystals. It's a mixture of crushed quartz and fire glass. And here I am just adding in the other kind. They're all clear crystals though. And I'm doing the same thing towards the back just to add another layer of the gemstones. And you can see those a little bit better. And now I'm just adding some sparkly glitter. I didn't think that my resin looked sparkly enough, so I am pouring that over top of where I put the stones. Here's some more glitter. This time it was pink instead of gold. And that's some purple. And there I'm adding black to go over those black shells. And I'm going to add some final touches with just the little bits of resin that I have left. And I just mixed a little bit of what I had set aside for the clear with some more pink pigment here, and I am drizzling that on the rings that have already blended together just to give it a little bit more contrast. I'm outlining those gemstones in the back with the pink. And I'm doing the same with the gold just to give that an extra effect. And with resin, you never really know exactly how it's going to dry, but this gave a cool effect and I was excited to try it. So here I'm going back in with the black, pouring some over those black shells. I made a little bit of a mistake, so I poured some more purple to cover up where I drizzled that black. And here I'm just taking the heat gun and going over everything one more time. This is making it all blend together a little more, but you know, interesting to see how it changed from that initial bullseye shape to this. Now I'm going in with some crushed white and tan shells. I got these in the vase filler section at Walmart. They're really pretty. They were like $5 for a big bag of them. All I had to do was sort out the colors, and it didn't take me very long. But here I'm putting those in around the clear fire glass and gemstones just to define that a little more and give it some more of a color pop. And then I'm going in one more time with the pink, just because as the colors blend together, you don't really know what's going to happen, and I wanted it to have all those colors. So here's just my final touches, and heating it one more time. and then I am wrapping it up. So here you can see this is what it looked like as it was drying, which I love, but it didn't totally stay that way. So you can see here that those colors all blended in a little more. So I am taking my Posca pens, which is how I do the detailing. I also used one gold Sharpie pen. They're the oil paint markers from Michaels. You can get them on Amazon too. But I am defining those sections with my pens just to give it more of that geode style, where it has all the sections defined and there's rings and there's lots of lines. So here I'm outlining where the stones are with my pink pen, and then outlining where the pink and purple kind of come together around that center. And then I'm just going to switch through with whichever color I feel matches up and define those rings. I'm still going to call them rings even though they're not as round as they were when I was pouring it. And here I'm just taking the gold and outlining where I poured those the clear quartz crystals and the shells, and using the gold to really accent those. It matches with the gold glitter that I poured on top of them. And here I'm outlining where the gold and black come together. And this you really can't mess up, and most of the Posca pens you can remove with Windex. In my experience, the ones I bought, I can't remove the black for some reason. I don't know if it's a different type of ink. So with the black, just kind of prepare before you do it. But with the white or the colors, I haven't had any issue with getting it to come off. And once they dry, they're pretty much smudge proof unless you like really force it. With the Sharpie pens, I haven't tried to erase it, but I do not think they would come off with Windex. And here I'm just finishing up those outlines, giving it a little bit more detail. I felt like this piece was a little bit plain, that the definition in the rings wasn't as great as in some of the other pieces I've done, but you know, it's definitely a more subtle look, and I do like it. So I just spend the next minute or so going through, and right now I'm defining those black shells by outlining them and giving that center a really dark appearance so that it has more contrast from the rest of the piece. And then I'm just adding more lines. Right now I'm giving that center some contrast because the black from the center did blend into the rings around it. And then I just go around the rest of the piece, and anywhere I feel like needs some definition or some contrast, I'm adding rings to it. So this one, as you'll see, I definitely didn't like what I had originally planned out, and then I erased it and redid it. But that's the good thing about working with these pens on resin, is that, you know, I've found they've been pretty easy to remove as long as it's not the black marker. So here's where I'm realizing I don't like that purple line I just did, and I'm erasing the part that went over the pink and white line, and just fixing those and redefining that purple ring. And I always like to carry my Posca lines onto the side of the canvas, but that's because I also really like the way the drips look, so I never block off the sides of what I'm working on. I just block off the bottom with tape, and then I let the sides be covered with the resin as it drips over. So here's just a few more lines. I am filling in between the Posca paint line that I did around those gems and just filling it in black to add some more contrast. I just felt like the center of this piece looked like it was all one color, so I'm adding in those black marks between the crushed shells and the gems just to define them a little more and make them stand out. And doing the same thing, going in between some of them. I didn't go all the way through the whole section, just that edge to give it that extra pop. So the next, 15-20 seconds is me just coloring in and defining those forms. And just adding the finishing touches that you really can't do with resin because it's hard to be precise. And so I am just about done here. You can see all of the detail work I did, exactly how I did it. And here is a photo of the final piece. So thank you so much for coming back to my channel, and I will look forward to next time.